One reason I came back to faith was because of my profession as a journalist. I go around and interview people. Journalists we're leeches. We don't have lives of our own, so we grab onto somebody who does have a life. And the people who impress me most, I've interviewed famous people. I could tell you some famous people. And I kind of divide them into two categories. There's stars and servants. The stars are the ones that we put the spotlight on, we put on the covers of their magazines, the Bill Gates' people. And I've gotten to know these people, and I went in thinking, man, would I like to be like those guys? But the more I've gotten to know them, I really wouldn't want to be like those guys. Sneaky journalist, I've been in their medicine cabinets, I've seen how many pills it takes them to get through in a day. I know how many spouses they've been through. I know how much they pay for counseling. These, by and large, few exceptions, aren't happy people. They're not fulfilled people. Instead, I've spent most of my career, really, finding people that we would normally overlook. And I told you I wrote 3 books with Dr. Paul Brand. He's as brilliant a man as I've ever met. He was offered the head of orthopedics at Stanford, at UCLA, at Harvard, turned it all down. This brilliant man graduated from the best medical school in England, top of his class, who spent his entire life, working life, among the lowest people on the entire planet. I guarantee you that there is nobody lower on any social ladder than someone in the untouchable caste in India who has leprosy. That's as low as it goes. They're kicked out of their own family, they're kicked out of their own villages, their hands, their feet, their faces are falling apart. And here was this brilliant orthopedic surgeon who devoted his life to putting them back together. And I'm sure he would have won a Nobel Prize if he had stayed in the nice laboratories in England, but he didn't do that. He went to this godforsaken place in the middle of a desert in India because nobody wants to live next to a leprosarium. And as a journalist, I just have to tell you, I've never met a more fulfilled and grateful and balanced person in my life than this servant in this godforsaken place giving up. You know, the statement that Jesus made that's repeated in the Gospels more than any other statement, 6 times, goes like this. He says, you don't find your life by grabbing hold and seizing and accumulating. You find your life by giving it away in service to others. And I found that to be true. Not just as I guess I got to do that, but if you actually do it, you are the one who benefits. You are the one who is the better person. I remember interviewing a man named Millard. Millard was an entrepreneur. He was a millionaire practically by the time he got out of high school. He had this scam going where he paid the secretary to the principal, and she gave him, for a certain fee, she gave him the phone numbers and birthdays of everybody in the school. So he would call, it was in Alabama, he'd call Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith, we got this little tradition here. I understand Mary's birthday's coming up next Tuesday. Well, yeah, that's right. Well, for $5, we'll bake her a cake and we'll have everybody in the school sing happy birthday. What do you think? Would you like to donate $5? Well, what mother's going to turn that down? And he got out of high school, he's already rich, he becomes a lawyer, and he's driving along one day and he notices that back in those days, the 1950s, people are on these old metal Ford tractors. They look so uncomfortable, they're bouncing up and down. So he invents a tractor cushion shaped like a tractor and becomes a millionaire. But his life is falling apart. And one day, he's getting a divorce, and one day somebody says to him, an African-American taxi driver in New York City, says, Sir, sorry I've been overhearing what you say here, but you know what you need to do? You need to go down and see Clarence Jordan in Georgia. He'll straighten out your life. And Clarence Jordan was this radical Christian, lived on a commune, was blown up by the KKK numerous times. And Millard went down there and explained his whole situation, and Clarence Jordan said, well, sounds to me like you got entirely too much money. So why don't you go give away all your money and then you come back and talk to me? He said, all of it? He said, isn't that what Jesus said to the rich man? Give it all away. Okay. So Millard did. He gave away $2.3 million. And he came back. Clarence said, you gave away all of it? Yes, sir. All of it? Yes, sir. Well, we need to find you a job, don't we? He said, what do you think makes God unhappy? And disease, earthquake, all these things make God unhappy. What do you think? And finally they decided, you know what really makes God unhappy? There are a lot of people in this world who have nowhere to sleep at night. They sleep in cardboard boxes, they sleep under bridges. That's a good one. Well, I'll tell you what, Millard, why don't you go build a house for everybody who doesn't have a house? Everybody? Do you think God would be happy if anybody said, no, sir. Well, you better get started. And Millard Fuller founded Habitat for Humanity. And they haven't built a house yet for everybody in the world, but they've built 200,000 houses so far. I was in a radio station with Millard in Chicago, and he was on the air, call-in show, and this woman called up, Jewish woman. She was furious. She said, I gave to Habitat for Humanity, and then I started getting all these mailings with all this Jesus talk. What is all this Jesus stuff? I don't believe in Jesus. I'm a Jew. And Millard said, well, of course, Jesus was a Jew too, ma'am. But he said, ma'am, you don't have to be a Christian to live in one of our houses, and you don't have to be a Christian to help us build one of our houses. But I got to tell you, ma'am, the reason I get up every morning, and most of my staff gets every morning, and do what we do is because we're trying to be like Jesus. And we think Jesus wouldn't be happy if there's anybody who doesn't have a house. So that's one of the last reasons why I believe, simply because I've seen the gospel work out in the people I admire most. C.S. Lewis said this. He said, if you read history, you will find out that the Christians who did the most for the present world, like a Millard Fuller, Paul Brand, were precisely those who thought the most of the next. Aim at heaven, and you will get earth thrown in. Aim at earth, and you get neither.